It's been about a month since I got this tiny little camera, and I'm going to be honest, this is one of the most fun cameras I've ever used. Now, I haven't taken it on a proper road trip yet, but I've been using it on and off since the day I've got it, and the experience has been surprisingly good. That said, my first reaction wasn't great. I'm someone who usually works with much bigger cameras. My A cam is the Sony FX3, and instinctively, I tried to push the Osmo Nano to give me a similar output, and that is where I went wrong. I have this habit of trying to extract the absolute best image a camera can produce because it helps me understand the limits of that camera and see how it fits my workflow. But with this camera, that mindset actually held me back. I was so focused on making this camera's output look cinematic that I forgot the actual purpose of this camera. The Osmo Nano is not supposed to replace a cinema camera. It's designed to be fast, small, and frictionless. But the moment I stopped thinking about the dynamic range and the sharpness and the noise and everything, and started thinking about actually documenting life and getting that shot, everything just changed. This isn't a camera you slow down for. It's a camera that you move fast with. So I started using it the way it's meant to be used, just like an action camera. And for that, I had to really fight with myself to let go of making everything look perfect. About a month ago, I was on a shoot at a winery. We were shooting a brand film and it was a whole day of production. I decided to carry the Osmo Nano with me in order to shoot some behind the scenes footage. And this is where the camera really started to make sense. It is so small that you don't really have to think about it. I was using the magnetic necklace that comes inside the box, and most of the times I would just forget I had a camera on me. And that is the biggest advantage here. Because it's so light and so easy to use, you can just press record and start capturing moments instantly. There's no setup or no planning required at all. And that's what makes it perfect for things like shooting BTS, vlogging, or even just capturing moments daily. Because realistically, if I tried doing the same with a bigger camera, that just would not happen. I can either focus on the shoot or focus on documenting it. Doing both at the same time becomes almost impossible, but with this, it just fits in. So the whole point of having an action camera is obviously being able to record some action. Now, I'm not someone who does some kind of an adventure sport or anything like that to show you what this camera is actually capable of and where you can use it, but obviously I can take you guys with me on a ride in my car. So right now, what I've done is attach the camera to the hat clip, and I'm wearing a hat inside my car. If I would have had the headband accessory, I would have just mounted it to my forehead, but yeah, the hat clip looks pretty good as well. This perspective looks pretty decent as well. Now, I wanted to talk about a few things about why shooting with this camera or why mounting this camera is so easy. Firstly, if you are just using the camera module and not using the dock attached to it, the whole package becomes very small, and at the same time, it is also very lightweight. So mounting it using a magic arm or mounting it using a suction cup becomes much more easier because there's pretty much no weight and then there's nothing to bog this camera down. Secondly, this being so tiny, it just fits into places that you would not normally fit a big, proper cinema camera or even a DSLR. Now, imagine me using my FX3 mounted to my head. Obviously, that is not possible. I mean, it is using some different kind of gear and mounting options, but it would not really be feasible for me because I'm just shooting a vlog. And also, I would look very weird, having a big ass camera mounted to my head. This is a much more smaller package and it kind of disappears on you. So right now I'm wearing a black hat and the camera body is also black, so you can barely see this camera. You don't even notice it when it's mounted on a black cap. This is one of the biggest plus points of having such a tiny body, and there are a ton of different mounting options that you can use. Obviously, some of the mounting options come inside the box itself, like the hat clip, or you get the magnetic necklace, and even the suction cup mount, which you can just stick onto any glass surface or any smooth surface. It works wonders because, as I said, this is a pretty lightweight camera and you don't really need a lot of strength in able to mount this thing. Now, I've also used the magic arm to mount it into places, like different places. So a few days ago, we were shooting a review for the Aether and we decided to, shoot an intro using this camera, and we mounted it onto the Aether. But yeah, having a small camera body, it just makes it easier and frictionless to shoot different perspectives and also not look like a weirdo if you are shooting in public because it just disappears on you. And yeah, the biggest plus point being that you can record literally hands-free. And yeah, also right now I'm using an accessory that, plays a very important role if you're shooting some sort of an action, because this makes the footage look much more natural, have much more natural, motion blur to the footage. And let's talk about it. So the accessory which I wanted to talk about, which has made a drastic difference, is an ND filter. And this is not about making the footage look more cinematic, it's about making it look more natural. You see, if you're shooting in bright sunlight with this camera in auto mode, it tends to push the shutter speed really high, and that makes the footage look a bit unnatural because there is no motion blur. So basically what an ND filter does is it cuts down that light, which then lets you keep your shutter speed in a more natural range. That brings back the motion blur. Now, the one that I am using is a variable ND filter. I decided to go with a variable ND because I did not want to swap out the filters every time the light changed. With this variable ND, I can just rotate the ring if the light changes, and it just makes everything much more seamless. This particular one that I'm using is actually from a brand called Newer, and it's not really made for the DJI Nano. It was initially made for the Action 5 Pro, which is DJI's action camera, but it just happens to fit the Nano as well because the threads on both of these cameras are the same. You can get similar ones from brands like Small Rig, which are a tiny bit better in terms of quality, but honestly anything like this just gets the job done. So a couple of days ago, DJI pushed out an update to this camera, and with that update they introduced a feature called as film tone. Now, if you're familiar with film looks that come with the Fujifilm cameras, this is something similar to that. So you get 6 different looks which mimic 6 different film stocks, and in my opinion they look pretty good. Here on the screen you can see the same shot with all the 6 different looks applied. Let me know which one you like. Now, if you ask me personally, I don't feel like I need to use these looks because I'm familiar with grading D-Log-M footage. But for people who are new to color grading or don't know anything about color grading, this feature can help them make their footage look a bit unique. But nevertheless, just wanted to point this out. With the same update, they changed one more major thing, which was a pain in the backside. So before the update, you could not really preview what's going on the dock if your camera is not attached to the dock while your microphone is connected to the camera. But after the update, you can. One more important thing that I felt like I should point out. And talking about microphone, let's talk about audio. Now, you can get away with bad video quality, but bad audio instantly destroys the experience. And for this entire video, wherever I have used the DJI Osmo Nano to shoot something, I was using the DJI Mic Mini. Now, the main reason why I went with the DJI Mic Mini was because of how seamlessly it connects to any DJI cameras. You can connect this mic wirelessly to the camera, there's no receiver, and there's no extra setup required. So you keep the form factor of the tiny Osmo Nano without adding any bulk to it, because the whole idea of this setup is to keep things small, simple, and frictionless. And this particular mic, which is the Mic Mini, just fits right into that. It's reliable, it sounds great, and once it is set up, you don't really have to think about it. So let's talk about the image quality, which is probably the most important thing when it comes to any camera. And honestly, I was surprised. Now, I went in with kind of low expectations because before this, I had used such tiny cameras from other brands like the Go series of cameras, and the footage there was just okay. But the first time I looked at the footage from the Nano on a bigger screen, I actually was surprised and I really liked it. The footage is sharp, the stabilization is solid, and the wide perspective really works well with this kind of a camera. Even the dynamic range is pretty decent for something this small. In daylight, this camera performs really well. You will get clean and usable footage almost every time. But low light is where you start to see the limitations. There is noticeable noise and the image kind of falls apart a bit, but again, that's expected from a sensor that is this small. One thing I noticed is that in low light, shooting in auto mode will give you way better results than shooting in manual mode. I know this sounds weird, but for some reason the manual mode had way more noise, even if it was set right at the right exposure, as compared to the auto mode. Whereas in daylight, using the manual mode and pairing the camera with an ND filter will give you the best results. But if you don't want to deal with all of that. You can just put the camera into auto mode and it does a pretty good job. And that's really the whole point of this camera. The image quality is good enough for what the camera is designed to do. So the image quality is good, it can be mounted anywhere, comes with a set of accessories inside the box, charges from 0 to 80% in like 20 minutes. But where does it really fit in my workflow? As a cinematographer, I'm always trying to capture things in a certain way, making sure everything looks perfect and feels intentional. But that also means that I'm either shooting or I'm thinking about shooting, and that takes you out of the moment. And that's where this tiny camera feels different. It lets me be present while still capturing what's happening. I don't have to think about settings, framing, or trying to make everything look perfect. I can just hit record and then do whatever I want to do. It's perfect for things like BTS. I can focus on the actual shoot while capturing what's happening around me. It also works really well as a vlogging camera because of how effortless it is to shoot with it, and also it's pretty small, so even if you're in public, people won't notice it. And there are shots I would never even attempt with my Sony FX3 that I have captured using the DJI Osmo Nano. So yeah, no, this is not a replacement to my FX3, but it's more like a complementary camera that I can use with it. It fills the gap where I just want to capture something without overthinking it. So yeah, this isn't a camera for everyone, but for someone who wants something small, easy to set up, and something quick, this makes a lot of sense. And for me, this fits perfectly as a secondary camera. Something that I can just carry around with me everywhere and capture moments as they happen. Anyways, that was my review about the DJI Osmo Nano. Let me know what you think. Do you consider picking one up or just, skipping it? Comment down, and until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.